Right then, so we have, if you like, our page. We've got our title here, we've got our list of tags here. We want the tags obviously spaced out, but we also want them to be links, the clicking on which will produce something appearing inside this text box here. So let's see how we can do that. If we go back into the editor, let's click on New Article Tags ASPX.VB. This is where we've added all our tags. Now here, as you can see, existing tags, controls add here. So instead of a literal control, what we really want to be adding here is a hyperlink. Okay, so let's first of all let's stop it playing. We're going to be typing in something like dim hyperlink. Well, I'll call it hlink as new hyperlink. Okay. Now then, and inside that hyperlink, we're going to set the text value, which is obviously going to be whatever is the tag. So we say hlink dot text equals db read dot item open bracket quote tag. Okay, so that's now fill the text. But we also typically with hyperlink objects we add a URL, namely the address to which clicking on that hyperlink will take you. However, in this case we're not actually going anywhere, we're just putting the word into a text box. And so what we do is we create a JavaScript URL. Okay, instead of a typical HTTP URL, we create a JavaScript URL. So I'll just show you how it works by doing a very simple JavaScript command, namely the alert command, which just brings up a pop-up. So if I type in something like this, hlink dot navigate URL, okay, we've seen these things before, navigate URL equals, and then quote, what I type in here, let's type in something like this, JavaScript colon alert open bracket, now a single quote, I'll just type in something like hello, so like end single quote, close bracket, close quotation marks. Okay, having done that, what should happen, I should thereby be creating a link which clicking on which would just make me say hello. So let me just now, so now you see where previously we said existing tags, which is the placeholder, if you remember, existing tags controls add, what we're going to be adding is this thing hlink, which we've just created. So put in there hlink. Okay, that will mean that instead of the actual word appearing, you'll see the word appearing as a link. Now remember, there weren't enough spaces before between the words, so let's just now add a literal control containing 2 spaces. Okay, which the way you do that is this: existing tags dot controls dot add open bracket new literal control open bracket quote. And remember, if you want to force some space into an HTML page, what you write is ampersand NBSP semicolon, means and non-breaking space, ampersand NBSP semicolon. Okay, so that should create 2 semicolons. Okay, so that should put a nice bit of space between all our hyperlinks. Okay, so let's now go back into in order to see this page, of course, we always have to start off with a new article. We can't just go straight into this page. So let's go into new article first of all and play that. Okay, and oh dear, there were some errors, so we need to just quickly check what they were. So there's a kind of bracket missing somewhere, so let's see where that is. If we go, I would imagine it's in new article tag, there's px.vb, and yes, it's here. There's a tag, there's a bracket missing there. So now I should hope this will work. Again, I'll go into new article first and then play it, and what this should bring up is the browser, where we'll be invited to put in another article. So I'm going to call these BBB, 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 BBB. The reason I'm just using different letters each time is just to, if there is a problem, subsequently you can look at the database and see. Okay. Now, as you see, we've got our pages appeared, the links have appeared as we expected them to. Okay, and by clicking on these links, what should happen if I click on Ubiquity? Hello. Okay, it's brought up inside using JavaScript. Okay, all we've done is bring up an alert box. Okay, so that is a very, very simple JavaScript function which has been triggered by clicking on the link. So instead of the link taking us somewhere, the link is actually bringing up a text box. But instead of bringing up a text box, we don't want to do that actually. What we want the thing to do is that word Ubiquity get added into the text box below. So now let's go back to the code, okay, and let's go to new article tags.aspx.vb, and here we've written JavaScript alert hello. Rather than that, what we want is to actually call a function which will put the text just clicked on into the text box. So it's going to still have JavaScript colon, but let's then let's put in like add. Oh no, sorry, I have to turn this, stop it playing first. So I type in it. So instead of saying alert, I say something like add tag to article, for example. Okay, open bracket quote. Okay, but now I want the actual text to appear. So I have to end this first quote at this point. Okay, let's remove the rest of that. I have to concatenate to it the tag that we've just added. Now, so it's hlink.text. So I can just put that in here as well, because that contains now the content of the tag, and then I put ampersand, and I put another single quote, because that ends the single quote inside the brackets for JavaScript purposes. I have to close the bracket. Okay, and then I have to put in the end quote. Okay, so that's now what would happen is now I've created a function called add tag to article. Now this is not, unlike alert, this is not a built-in function. I must need to define this function. Okay, but I was saying add tag to article, and I've put in a quote there. There's the tag word, and there's the finishing up a parenthesis. Now then, to make that function, I've got to define this add tag to article. Now this is because it is JavaScript, it is not defined here. It is not defined in the code behind. Rather, it is put into the designer page. So let's go into the designer page, new article tags.aspx. Okay, let's go into the source. And in the source, what we're going to do above the body, we're going to actually create an area called script. So I'm going to type in script language equals quote JavaScript. Okay, and I'm going to put an angle bracket there, and then it's created my script region. I say now putting it here means this script is valid for the whole page. Okay, so anywhere in the page can call this function and it will work. Now what we're trying to do then is whatever when somebody's clicked on that link, that the content of the link will be put into the text box. Okay, so the question is how does it know the text box? First of all, let's do it now. It's a slightly different syntax. It's not typically VB like syntax. This is more like Java or C, if you know those languages. And the way you define a function here is you type in the word function. Okay, and remember we called it add tag to article, open bracket, and in here you just type in the name of the parameter. So we can just make something like tag name or something like that, anything you want. Okay, and then we type in squiggly brackets. Okay, and this is where the function body will be. Okay, it's kind of tries to format it. I prefer to have them aligned, the squiggly brackets, but that is a personal choice. Okay, so we have that now built in, put in the page. Now, first of all, we need to find out the text box. Okay, to get hold of the text box. And we know what let me see, what is its real name so far? it's currently called text box 1. Well, actually, it might be a very good idea at this point to actually change it. So let's change it to something more meaningful, like tag field. Okay, that's much more meaningful and memorable. Okay, because so that's now click on that text, but it's now called tag field. Okay, so I need to get hold of that. Now, where you get hold of it in JavaScript, you have to do this slightly complicated way of doing it. But you type in var, meaning this is a variable, tb, which could just meaning our text box, equals. Now here we type. This is the thing you have to remember. Document dot, and this is an extremely important JavaScript function, get element by ID. Okay, that function get element by ID is used such that I can actually get hold of any object in an HTML page such that JavaScript can interact with it. So get element by ID quote, and we've called it tag field, haven't we? So I type in that var tb equals document get element by ID tag field. So now that from now on, having done that, tb genuinely relates to the text box. Okay. Now, a text box in JavaScript, unlike in VB, which we've been using, the text inside it is referred to by a thing called its dot value, not by its dot text. So what we could write is something like this: tb dot value equals well, I'll just show you. I'll do this for now. Just tag name. Okay, so this is a very simple way. Now this won't work completely right, but I'm just showing you so that we can gradually get used to using JavaScript. So we've got hold of the text box, and all we're saying is that the text of the text box is going to be the same as this parameter tag name that we've passed to the function add tag to article. Okay, so let's just check if this does actually work, although that's not perfectly defined, this function at the moment. So let's create a new article and then try to add a tag afterwards. So if we run the page, so we're just going to bring up the new article page in the browser. Okay, so here it is. So let's say I'm going to CCC. Okay, and I click add entry to database. Okay, so now we've got these. Now let's click on these fields. So click on ubiquity. Okay, that does go into the table. That's good, isn't it? Click on now this is not exactly what we want, because what is happening is only one piece of text is going. The entire text field is being occupied by that. So rather than just simply saying the text of the field should equal the tag being clicked on, rather the contents of the text field should have added to it, to have appended to it, the text of the link being clicked on. So let's just go back to our coding and let's just alter that slightly. Okay, so now let's go back into that JavaScript. Where's that JavaScript? Here it is. Add tag to article. Currently we're saying text box, the value of the text box is the tag name. Rather, we should be saying the value of the text box is the previous value of the text box plus, and we'll put in a space here, plus the tag name. Okay, so that's that should work now. So let's just see what that looks like. Okay, so if I close it down, go back into new article.aspx.vb, start it up again. This still won't be absolutely perfectly right because we're appending this text, but there is. I don't know if you're sharp, just try to think of yourself. What do you think might be the problem here? Any ideas? Is if I type in ubiquity, that's fine. Your multimodality, yes, that's working, that's fine. But suppose I type in multimodality again, yes, we don't want it to be able to put in the same tag more than once. Okay, so we need to go back to the JavaScript yet again. Okay, so let's go back into the JavaScript. Okay, there it is, new article tags. So what we want to do is first of all check if the text box already has that text. If it already has that text, then we don't want to add it. Okay, so let's type in. There is a nice JavaScript program called index of. Okay, which you can relate to a string, and it'll tell. And you can work out if a substring exists within the larger string. Okay, so thinking of a phrase, or let me think. House martin. There is a bird called the house martin. If I said house martin dot index of house, the value would be 0, because it would say yes, the word house does exist inside house martin at the position 0. If I said, however, house martin dot index of martin, it would say the answer is, I think it's either 5 or 6, because it would be wherever the M is of Martin. Okay, so if the substring does not exist in the larger string, it were to return a -1 value. Okay, so we can just check using this index of. If this index of is greater than or equal to 0, we will know that the substring exists in the string. If it is less than 0, we know that it doesn't. So a way we would write it something like this: if open bracket tb.value.index of open bracket tag name close bracket is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, meaning if tag name does exist already inside the text of the text box, then basically we're going to do nothing. We're just going to say return. Although we're going to need to add another bracket there, because inside JavaScript syntax, all kind of if statements have to be inside single brackets, and also they don't have a then. They don't require a then. In VB script, in VB and VB script, the way you do an if statement is if so and so, so and so, then do this. Whereas in JavaScript, the syntax is if open bracket something 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 close bracket, and you don't have the word then. Okay, so if that is the case, so if the tag name exists already inside the text box, don't do anything. Then the opposite of that, else. Okay, we say tb.value equals tb.value plus. Now I'm going to correct the name directly after it. So plus tag name plus, I'm going to put a space at the end. Okay. Okay, and another thing about JavaScript, you have to have semicolons at the end of lines, which you don't need in VB. Okay, so if the tag name is already inside the text box, do nothing. Otherwise, the text of the text box is the text of the text box, and the tag you just clicked on with a space after it, meaning that there's already a space ready for the next one to be added. Okay, so this should now be working properly. So let's go back now into new article.aspx. Let's stop it playing and let's run it again. Okay, and this time we're going to add another page into the another article into the database. And I click add article entry to database. Go to the next page. Now click on ubiquity, multimodality. I'm going to click on multimodality again. Nothing happens. Good. Click on study. Click on study again. Nothing happens. But I can also still add my own. So text. Okay. So this is now, and I can also now remove some things that I previously put in there. But now ubiquity is not there anymore. I can type in ubiquity again, although it's gone to the very end without the space. But again, it's going to be too complicated for me to actually put in a absolutely perfect kind of input thing. We'll rely on the user to actually put in some spaces if necessary. Okay, so therefore we've got that. We've got all our we can tag using individual words. I noticed last FM you could have a tag which was more than just an individual word. You'd have a phrase separated by a comma. I'm only going to be allowing single words. Okay, so that's it. We've got that. We've managed to we've got an interface which allows us to add tags into the system. Okay, and the final thing is that we're going to be using this button here, which is going to be taking us to a page where we're going to be causing these tags to be added into the database. Okay, now you'll notice the way we've written the page so far is that it's all been done on the page load command. So there's new article tags. So on page load, we're reading in the article title from the parameters. We're also reading in the actual well, we haven't yet actually read in, but what we will need to do is to get the ID of the article that's just been added. Okay, so we need to get hold of that as well to be putting in here. But then the button command, now in the past what we've done is we've just kind of like put the code inside the button, but in this case what I'm going to be doing rather than that is to creating this into two separate halves. We're going to use the button to post to the same page, okay, but we're going to be checking if this page has been only just arrived at or has been posted back to itself. Okay, and there is a beautiful little function in ASP.NET called isPostBack, which can tell you if the page is being posted back to itself. Okay, if the page is being posted back to itself, then we know that the user has added tags, and now we want to add those tags to the database. But if the page has been only just arrived at, we know that the user has not yet entered the tags. Okay, but anyway, what we will do in the next video is to just show you how we're going to implement that.